Stop the cap.
Well, for one, I did say that I was done making videos about Israel. And people get fussy for all different type of reasons about me or black people in general making videos about Israel because there's some black people, pro black people, um, who try to educate me on shit I already know. Shit I've already covered many times over the years before these conflicts even arise. You know, things like how the Arabs nor the Jewish people of Israel, fuck with black people. I mean, you got the Arabs, they run around calling black people Abid. You see all the racist bullshit coming from the uh, Arab Egyptians that came there in the 7th century that want to claim, Egypt, and are so appalled at the idea that Egypt was black despite all the profound evidence all over the place. You got the Israeli Jews treating the Ethiopian Jews like shit. Again, giving the women Depo-Provera, which is a progesterone regimen that lasts for about 3 months and prevents you from getting pregnant. I mean, as controversial as it might be to say, the Israelis have become the Nazis. I mean, they have managed to destroy any hope for the concept of Israel going forward, along with things that are just completely unprecedented, like unifying the Sunnis and the Shiites, who don't even like each other. Okay, because they want to, fight over, who was the what's the word that I'm looking for? Who was the next person in the line of succession, when the Prophet Muhammad died? Was it I think it's Al Bakar, Abu Bakar, something like that. And then there's Ali. And Ali was killed. And ever since then, they've been fighting. Okay. And that's the whole thing with the, Iranians versus the Sunnis, or the Persians versus, because really the only state that Shia is Iran for some reason. I don't know why. I don't know the whole extensive history, but basically they hate each other. Islam has different factions, just like Christianity has different factions. So you got evangelicals, Baptists, Presbyterian, Protestant. You know, I guess you could throw Catholics in there, right? All different factions, and then Islam has, Wahhabis, Sufis, Alawites, uh, Shia, and Sunnis. I think that's all the different factions, but they got a whole bunch of different factions, and they do things different. And Israel, in their attacking of, or the genocide against the Palestinians, has basically unified the entire Muslim world. They're putting their politics and their grievances aside because essentially, just like Christians, if Christians were being genocided or purged somewhere, that you would hear from the evangelical Christians. I mean, they run around with their white persecution complex already anyway. They anytime somebody has an issue with some white Europeans, you'll have some Christians that'll jump up and be like, it's because they're Christian. But the other thing is that Israel has, they have undermined their own argument about the Holocaust. Like, nobody's going to listen to arguments about the Holocaust anymore. Like when it comes to the West, at least, the West has felt bad about, you know, the Holocaust and how Jewish people were treated and how people tried to basically wipe them off of the map. This is Europeans. And like I said before, the formation of Israel, Zionism, is probably the most anti Semitic thing that exists in the world, because the white Europeans, where it looks like, oh, well, we're helping them. Okay, why didn't you give them half of Germany? The Germans were the ones that were fucking them up. Why didn't you give them half of Germany? Instead, they had East Germany and West Germany controlled by the Russians and the United States. United States controlled East, Russia controlled the West, right? And then basically the Jewish people, they were basically in many regards told, yeah, go down there and go to, you know, Palestine, call it Israel, make us a base down there. Because truth be told, we really don't want you here, and we don't want you around us. And not only that, it's almost like a setup. Yeah, we're going to concentrate all the Jewish people in one area so that they could be more easily, you know, done away with, right? It's like, I don't know how Jewish people don't see that. You know, people are talking about like nukes and talking about. I mean, you got everybody just concentrated in one spot. With Jewish people being as small of an ethno minority as they are, I think it would be better to be a little bit more spread around. But again, biblical Torah prophecy and this is our homeland and all that nonsense, which again, yes, Jewish people were in the Middle East. They've been there. I mean, they were throughout the Middle East. I mean, I talked about this before, the Mizrahi Jews, the Ashkenazi Jews who are from Europe, and then you have, the Sephardic Jews, right? But is Jewish people in quote unquote Palestine, they were 5% of the population. In Jerusalem, they were 50% of the population. But they were never the majority, of the population. The majority of the people have always been Muslim people. And I'm not saying that they've never had their clashes with Muslims and had to pay the jizya and all that shit. But for the most part, the Muslims, they let them be and they let them do their thing. It wasn't until the formation of Israel that they had all the beef and had all the issues and all the problems with them. But the way I see it, looking at the whole thing, I don't see how Israel's going to last in the long run. I think that they have. I mean, when you see, the kids, and the fact, they lost their whole family. I mean, those kids are going to become the next generation of terrorists. Those kids are going to become the next generation of Black September. There will be many more, what was that, 1973 Munich? There will be many more of that. Those kids, when they grow up, they will hunt down Jewish people wherever they are. I wouldn't want to be a Jewish person, because they can't go anywhere now. They can't leave the country. They can't. I mean, they can't go anywhere. There's gonna be all type of sanctions. I mean, the shit is just dumb. If the United States walks away from Israel, which it's likely to do, right? Especially once you get all the boomers and all the compromised APAC, people out of Congress, and hopefully, I was gonna make a video about this, about younger people not only getting into politics, but younger people creating laws, and this is just across the board. It doesn't have anything to do with any race, whether black, white, or whatever. But younger people are going to have to be more intelligent about their politics, and because the whole thing with foreign entities able to give money to politicians, and if those people don't vote a particular way, then they'll fund their opposition. I don't even know how you have a foreign entity or foreign power able to lobby, able to throw money at politicians so that they don't serve the interest of the American people. I don't even know how that's fucking legal. I mean, when it comes to owning a television network, no foreign entity can own a television network in America. That is law. Like, Russia can't come over and own a television network in America. I think they got kicked off of YouTube with the Russian TV or something like that, right? Which some people, people argue, oh, that was propaganda. I was like, another opinion around the world. I'm all open to, more opinions, right? Because if you actually go and you seek out a lot of stuff, even with Vladimir Putin, you'll discover like the America has no business over there in Ukraine. I mean, when there was the Cuban Missile Crisis and Russia put missiles on in we're trying to put Russia missiles in Russia on America's doorstep. America freaked out and had the Bay of Pigs. But somehow when America goes and they want to put rockets and missiles on Russia's doorstep, Russia's just supposed to, bend over and take it with a smile. That's not going to happen. I mean, the U.S. and NATO have broken tons of agreements that there would be no expansion. And what do? They expand. And then they talk about, well, it's Ukraine's, sovereignty to be independent, blah, 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 blah. So Russia's like, fuck y'all, we're taking back the regions that were historically Russian, that have majority Russian populations. This is what we're going to do because Russia, Russia has always had the issue of securing its borders because unlike the United States, it has very porous borders. And then the other thing, I mean, people say that, well, the United States borders, we got the southern border and we got two oceans on both sides. So, and nobody's really trying to come across Canada. It's too fucking cold. So the U.S.'s borders are essentially secure. They only got to worry about, the Mexican border, which all they got to do is just put more people there, walls, whatever, and they're not doing that. But when it comes to Russia, they also need, warm water ports, because that has always been an issue because I mean, how can you be a superpower if you don't have maritime trade? Can't be. So that's why you got, I think it's what is that, St. Petersburg, right? To try to have some sort of access. But then the issue now is that, they can be blocked off by, all of the NATO members that, are now has been added. What is it? Finland and what were these countries? The Finland and some of the Baltic nations and Norway. Who just added to NATO? I forget who it was. I know it was Finland, and I think there was another nation, but there's only Finland, Norway, and Sweden up there. Okay, and Finland is literally sitting on Russia's doorstep. So NATO is right up against Russia's door. So there's reason for them to, be freaking out the way that they are. But U.S. foreign policy right now is just trash. Like, it's just trash. And Americans also have to recognize that much of the well, how I want to say it, the after World War II, the boom that existed, and this rolls right into the conversations we have about, traditional family structures and gender and all that other shit. That all that was artificial because Europe was bombed to hell, and there was, America essentially was the only place that had the capacity and its, manufacturing infrastructure intact. So everybody was purchasing and consuming from America because America was not affected by World War II. Hawaii was, Pearl Harbor, but other than that, America did not get attacked. So between the 1940s to the 1960s and going into the 70s, America had a boom, that was artificial. Now all the other countries have kind of, caught up, and they have their own manufacturing bases with the help of the U.S. because corporations, again, while you have these conservatives running around talking about personal responsibility and hard work, corporations have always wanted to cut costs. And once they got no tariffs, free trade agreement, shit like that, they were like, hey, let's go over to these third world countries and, develop their infrastructure and pay those people next to nothing, which, for them, improves their quality of life over there, and then slowly basically phase out American workers. But yet you still have white conservatives running around talking boomer talk about hard work and personal responsibility. Again, your hard work and personal responsibility doesn't have anything to do with corporations who want to cut costs because paying employees is an expense. But many of you all don't seem to understand that. So the corporations benefited. They got wealthy. They got rich. Corporate executives got rich. But, America's had like this slow decline. And, looking at, where we are now, America doesn't even have the capacity, to go into conflict, with, and have two, fighting in Ukraine, fighting for Israel. And then, with all these other nations, the global south, as what's that guy's name, the bearded Muslim guy, he looks white to me, but what's his name, something nation, what's the damn channel, I can't think of what it is off the top of my head. But he always talks about the global south, and the global south is, developing. I mean, not developing, but I'm saying it's already, many places are already developed. A lot of, Americans don't have any concept of the type of, cities, that they have in Southeast Asia. You got, Singapore and Dubai and, the Arab Emirates and all these places in Southeast Asia, um, that are now, developed. And, if they look at America like, America is not to be trusted, America is not to be fucked with, America is not to be, dealt with, they can have a substantial impact on, um, American economies. Now, America still has the power and the influence of its navy and the maritime trade and all that. America is not, totally phased out, but, um, the global South is trying to figure out ways to circumvent, the United States being, the center of the universe. And if America wants to have different relationships with the rest of the world, uh, the relationship of the United States and Israel has to change, and the United States can no longer back, um, Israel. At best, we can say two-state solution, and that seems to be pretty much completely off the table. And hold on, I'm gathering my thoughts. Honestly, what should have happened, if Israel was smart in the grand scheme of things, is when they got attacked on October 7th, they should have secured their borders, and they should have called out to the international community and said, look at what Hamas did to us. They attacked us, they killed us, and, what are we to do? And then they should have came to the table, or offered a table and said, hey, we want a two-state solution. Even though they don't want a two-state solution, they want the whole thing. But they should have put the ball in Hamas's court and said, hey, you guys attacked us. And some people would be like, oh, we don't negotiate with terrorists. But it's like, hey, we want, you're not doing it for the purpose of actually making any sort of concessions with Hamas. You're doing it for the international stage, the international community, to say, hey, they attacked us. We didn't retaliate. We simply secured our borders. We want to exist in peace. All you go through all the motions, and then you say, hey, you know, we're willing to discuss, compromises or two-state solution or whatever. But Hamas doesn't want to talk to us. They don't want to sit down with us. Israel would have been in a much better position than they are now. Now they've basically become the same people who genocided them, which are the Nazis. And what's crazy to me is like, how could you not see that? Like I like it like I don't know. I separate Jewish people in America from Israelis, even though I know you got Jewish sympathizers in America, but like Israelis are on a whole different level. They're like sociopaths. And I'm like, how could you not see that? How could you not see? How could you not see that you're doing the same thing to the Palestinians that was done, to Jewish people? Like when you go on, I mean, just all you gotta do is just pull up the clips. When you look at situations like Baba Yar, And I think that's in Poland, where they just lined people up and mowed them down and made them dig their own graves and shit like that, like and stripped down naked and stuff like that. Like, how could they see that? Like, if you took black and white photos of World War II and concentration camps and the Nazis and all that shit, and you put that right there with, what's going on in Palestine, like, you really can't separate the two. Okay, Hamas killed whatever it was, 1,500, 1,400 people, and then Israel goes and kills where we're at, 20,000 people, 22,000 people. I think we're at something like that. That's a crazy number. Like, people don't realize how crazy of a number that is, And I mean, then you have other shit going on where there's supposedly an oil field off the coast of northern Gaza. And so, the Israelis want to go and they want to claim that, because I mean, hell, they're going to have to pay for all the, the ordinances and everything else they've used. And they could clearly be able to do that with oil, right? So, they don't want, Israel, I mean, Gaza being able to claim those oils and build up, the situation. I just, the whole approach to Israel's formation and what they did, like, the way you come in is basically, what you end up having to deal with or what your kids end up having to deal with. I was just having a conversation with a white person about, America and black people demanding reparations and whatnot. And, how, Europeans just go around the world with their colonialism and their imperialism. And I'm like, y'all could have went around the world and had some fair and equitable deals, for every people that you came across, but you didn't do that. And so now you got to deal with the narratives of, oh, white people are evil and they come from a lineage of evil, and white people try to, it's funny because one breath they'll sit there and, whenever a group of people want to retaliate, they'll say, oh, well, what about white Jesus and what about morality? And again, I look at black people like they're funny because I don't know how you can allow a group of people who have treated your people such a way to be the moral compass for you, on top of the fact of what I said previously about how does somebody who only showed up on the scene 40,000 years ago tell a group of people who've been here, for at least 200,000 years what the deal is, and how they can have a relationship with God. But let me not go down that route. I'm just saying. The point I'm making is Israel could have gone in there and when it came to them coming, all the Ashkenazi Jews coming by the boatload, and the British acting as a protectorate and helping facilitate that, even though they did try to prevent the flow of them coming in because it was starting to cause problems. And then the bombing of the King David Hotel and Stern Gang, and the way the whole conflict kicked off. I'm just saying, I think the conversation would be different between Israel and Palestine if Israel, took its abundant resources and actually built up, schools and infrastructure for the Palestinians, and allowed Palestinians to share in the wealth. Most people, they don't care. First off, the idea and concept of land, that okay, that's one thing, but I'm saying most people ain't going to make a whole bunch of noise if they have something to lose, and they have a fairly decent quality of life. Most people will let a lot of shit slide. Now, granted, in terms of the how you form a government, even if it was a two-party state, the issue for Israel is that they would always be a minority, and they don't want to be a minority in a two-party state situation, because the Palestinians outnumber them, you see. So they don't want to have a situation like that. But it would be a little bit different if they had the leverage, because I mean, the reality is the Nobel Prizes, the technology, the advancements and stuff like that. I don't know. I don't even know the last time an Arab even won a Nobel Prize or anything like that, right? Because whole nother conversation, but in my opinion, Islam holds Arabs back. They're regressive and archaic in their thinking, and they operate on group think. And it's a criticism that you tell that to an Arab, Arabs get butt hurt, but it's the truth. There's only a handful of progressive Arabs, and that would be you know Arabs that have diversified their economies, and that would be the Arabs in Dubai and the Arab Emirates and arguably Saudi Arabia. Like Saudi Arabia, like they'll send you to any university in the world to go get educated if you're a Saudi. But you have to, get an education in, the sciences, right? STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. They're not going to send you out there to go and get your liberal arts degree. They're not going to do that. They focus on hard skills. You see, so there are Arabs that have a progressive mindset, in that regard. But a lot of the Arab world, the Arab poors, the ones that just run around and they scream Allahu Akbar, like they're not progressive in their thinking in terms of, even if you wanted uh, to challenge, the Israelis, you don't do it from a spiritual standpoint. You do it from, an economical, industrial standpoint. That's what the standpoint that you do it, from. And I tell you the same thing to the Africans. The Africans are another magical people that either want to sit around and tell you about Islam or tell you about white Jesus, and they don't have any, industriousness. They're too busy worried about God and right and wrong and who's evil and whatnot. Where we live in a world where might makes right. The freaking whoever the leader of Burkina Faso is, he's got the right idea, right? Yesterday's price is not today's price, and now you're not just going to sit here and keep exploiting us. It's our land, it's our country, and y'all come here and again, even previous French presidents have pointed out that they would not be for France would not be where it is if it wasn't for the exploitation of Africa. I mean, you talk about the same people that exploited Haiti, right? Blackballed Haiti, right? Had Haiti pay, restitution and reparations for lost properties, the slaves freeing themselves. Again, these European nations are sociopaths. And when you look at the Israelis, at the end of the day, they're white people. They're Caucasian. They're from Europe. They have the same sociopathic behaviors as the rest of Europeans, where they go out into the world and, act as a plague and, function and operate in a manner that empowers themselves at everybody else's expense who's not them. That's how they operate. That's how they move. Right. And when it comes to the, whether we're talking about Ukraine, they identify with them because they're white Christians. They look like us, and they low key identify with, the Israelis, because at the end of the day, they're still in there's many ways in which they don't identify them, but there's other ways in which they do identify them because they represent a colonial power. It's white colonialism. That is essentially what Israel is. It's no different than South Africa. It's no different than the Americans and pushing out the Native Americans, right? It's no different. It's no different than the Portuguese and the Spaniards, moving into Latin America and taking over. That is what they do. Okay, they're people annihilators. They're the necromongers from fucking Chronicles of Riddick. It's what they do. That's their history. Hence why a lot of black people are running around saying white people come from a lineage of evil. And they've done nothing to correct that, and they're not going to correct it at again at their own expense. They don't have resources in Europe. The resources are in the global South. The resources are outside of Europe. I was having an argument with another white guy about I like that saying that Tim Dillon said on Joe Rogan where he was quoting somebody else. Invade the world, invite the world. He was talking. I mean, it's like white people don't even understand how their own system of capitalism works. Okay, they think that that whiteness is like this unified front of white ideology, and that they're all on the same page, and it's a us versus them people. And I'm like, white people's culture is the default system, and I'm going to give credit to whoever the brother was that wrote that in my comment section, but he's 100% spot on. White people's default system is feudalism. That is their default system. Kings, queens, nobles, and peasants. It was never this idea of the sort of rights and individual rights and privileges of the common man, and that white people thought in a collective term of increasing the quality of life for most white people. No, the capitalists, the business class, basically became the nobles, got rid of the kings, and they became the capitalists, and all their concern is about enhancing their own riches. Now, to what degree they preserve white culture? Well, according to the white nationalists, which who erroneously run around and constantly just blame the Jews, they don't focus on, the white oligarchs that again they still want their cheap labor. I was watching some video on Instagram, and there was a bunch of Palestinians or people protesting in Sweden, and um it was acting like every person in that crowd was Muslim. Maybe they are, but again, invade the world, invite the world. Now, Sweden, I don't know if Sweden particularly invading, anyone. I don't know what Sweden's birth rates are. But when it comes to inviting migrants into your nation, 9 times out of 10, it's because A, there's low birth rates, and B, the oligarchs want cheap labor. So if the oligarchs want cheap labor, that means that the oligarchs don't want to pay, the local, by birthright citizens of that nation. They don't want to pay them. And this is something that white people struggle to be able to understand, because they always running around with these concepts of, white nationalism, and it's like the oligarchs do not care about that shit. I mean, if we just look at their track record, they don't. And that's why you see some of these far right politicians getting in who are taking a more nationalist, sort of, approach, right? That are focused on, we need to do things like advocate for policies that are conducive to family and increase birth rates, like what the Hungarian president did, where people who have 4 or more kids don't have to pay income tax. Can you imagine if they did that shit in America, right? But chances are they're not going to do that, even when it comes to the white population. Unless there is uh, a shift in which eventually there will be, because boomers' time is their time is limited. If you were born in 1945, you're what 70, 77, 75, 78 years old, something like that, right? And the life expectancy I think is like what 76. You know what I mean? So like you got limited time left. So um what's going to happen over the next 10 years when those people are gone? Even with the housing market, it's like, all these boomers are sitting around, you know, it's like, I don't even know what they plan to do. It's like, okay, you're in your 70s and you're sitting on your $800,000 home, and you want BlackRock to come in and buy it from you so that you can then do what? you know? And it's so crazy that you have people with, like, I don't know, 3 kids, and they're over there living in a 2-bedroom apartment or something, and then you got a boomer, whose spouse died, and they're living in a 5-bedroom home, and just existing there until they die. I get it. I get the lifetime of achievements and accomplishments and all that, but I mean, to have a society that's not conducive to family, that's not focused on the most productive members of society, and everything is about how big your portfolio is, and all those people are just kind of like acting like vampires, like they're going to live forever, and they're just hoarding all of the wealth. And then the young people start shutting down, and then again, like we see with white folks, right? you know Drug involvement, self deletion involvement, mass shooting involvement, right? Like all those things are going to increase until there is an economic pivot towards the younger population and people getting their life started. I already called it out. When I went and I pulled up that 1960, that the average age in 1960 for a first time home buyer was 25 to 26 years old. And now in 2023, the average age for a home buyer is 36 years old. And even if you make, six figures, like you barely qualify, for, a lot of different shit. I mean, honestly, the six figures that people talk about from the 1990s is really freaking, $272,000 a year. If you adjusted for inflation, you have to make almost $300,000 a year for six figures to mean what it meant, in the late 80s, early 90s, you know? So there's a lot of adjustments that have to be made. And, maybe that's why God, created death. Maybe that's why death exists, right? If you want to get magical with it. Because the only way things change is if people die, because like the old people, like they don't want to budge, they don't want to move. You know how many arguments I've had with my own people about the Democrat Party and black people, vote blue no matter who, and I'm like trying to explain how they can ignore you, and they're just like, so who are you going to vote for? Trump? What are the Republicans going to do? I'm like, we don't vote for them. So why would they be focused on what they're going to do for us? We haven't demonstrated that we can fucking get off of the Democrats' teat. We haven't demonstrated that yet. You're on some vote blue no matter who because you feel like Donald Trump is racist. I feel like black people would get more from Donald Trump than they could from the Joe Biden. You know what I mean? Like Donald Trump will go up there and occasionally he'll have some black people will boost his ego, and then he'll be like, the blacks love me, and then we'll be like, yep, Donald Trump, the blacks love you, we sure do love you, Donald Trump. Hey, by the way, since we love you so much, you think you could sign this bill for us and get this passed? You know what I mean? He's, why, certainly. You know what I mean? Like all you gotta do is stroke that man's ego, because he's not really loyal to anybody. He's the megalomaniac. You know what I mean? So he's a, what's the other word that I'm looking for? He's a, he's narcissist. He's yeah, I think megalomaniac is the word that I'm looking for. But anyway, yeah. So black people get more from Donald Trump than anything else. It's always the person that's not supposed to be giving us stuff. That is the one that ends up giving us stuff. The ones that makes concessions. That African Americans have been looking for a while, right? But again, we gotta demonstrate that we're not bought and sold by the Democratic Party. Like we have to demonstrate that. We got all these black boomers up there. They're horrible. Like they're awful. These fucking Clyburn type of people. I can't wait till these people are gone. The Maxine Waters, the fucking Sheila Jacksons. I mean, just get out of here. Y'all too old. Leave the room. But again, a lot of that is our fault because a lot of younger black people, millennials and younger, don't go out and vote. We not like the old people. The old people, all they listen to is soundbite. They don't think like we do. They don't have information at their fingertips, like we do. They don't. I've tried to put my own family members onto Chat GPT, and it's like I'm trying to show them like what they can do, like the possibilities of even just like certain ideas, branching out. But it's like trying to teach an old dog new tricks. It's horrible. It's just horrible. It's like, goddamn, like you're not even open to shit. That's why every time They go, oh, we got to talk to the black community. Oh, let's go to a church, a white Jesus church. It ain't nothing but old niggas in there that go, I know that's right. Amen. It's the same tired bullshit. It's like, I don't give a fuck about you showing up at some goddamn church. I don't care about that shit. Talk to me about some tangibles. Talk to me about things that you are specifically going to do for the black community within the first term. And if you don't do it, we're gonna have you the fuck out of there. Notice how AIPAC operates, right? Going back to Israel. Notice how AIPAC operates. AIPAC's like, you are going to vote against the ceasefire, and if you don't, we're going to fund your opposition. And the black people, they all scared. Oh my God, AIPAC's going to vote against me. Oh my God, they're going to send their money to my opposition. Oh no, right? But black people over here thinking that they have some sort of leverage, and every election is vote blue no matter who, vote blue no matter who, right? And I'm not even saying that the fucking Republicans, are doing anything particular for us, but even Steve Bannon has written in Breitbart, well, maybe we should specifically be looking at black men, since black men are the loudest ones that ain't on the damn plantation. Because it's like, on the left you got the attack on masculinity, LGBTQ. We don't co-sign none of that shit, right? You got feminism, all this man hating. We're like, nah, we ain't comfortable over here anymore, right? And again, there's a lot of conservative values, quiet as is kept, that black people actually value. Like black people get all upset with the white evangelicals. I'm like, shut up. All y'all like white Jesus too. Stop it. Most black people always talking about Jesus, white Jesus, oh Jesus. I'm like, that's what the evangelicals are on. So you on the same page on that? Right? Black people, oh, we have this love-hate relationship with guns, where black people, they got guns, they just don't got them, or like they got a lot of illegal guns, and they got legal guns too, but like black people are on some, we don't give a fuck what the Second Amendment is. Have what the fuck you need. That's what black people are on. So they don't feel the need to go out there and support elections and shit. Black people riding around dirty. They don't give a fuck, even though that shit's causing them to get jammed up sometimes, especially with black men. I'm like, nigga, get your permit. What the fuck are you doing? Like just getting caught up. And then when it comes to family, again, it was so funny is black people verbally say that they support like traditionally oriented nuclear families, but in practice, our shit is all over the place. It's sloppy as fuck. And the feminists, they off on their shit. They want new forms of family, and they want to have this infinite pool of resources to freaking grab into, right? But everybody says that they support the biblical traditional family, but as soon as you get in the head of household, with black men, it all falls apart. And it largely falls apart again because of the way that black people, specifically black men, have been economically marginalized. I don't care who you are. At the end of the day, if you aren't, the chief breadwinner, or you aren't controlling, the economic landscape of your community as a group of men, you're not going to be able to maintain a patriarchy or sustain a patriarchy. That at the end of the day, your kids and your women are going to look at you like, we don't eat off of you, and we don't get anything from you. So why should we be listening to you? I don't negotiate with you for my survival. So patriarchy is dead on arrival, in regards to that. The same way that young black people feel about black boomers. Like, we don't give a fuck what they got to say. We don't even respect them like that. Because at the end of the day, we don't eat off of them. We don't get mortgages from them. We don't get economic opportunities from them. We don't get shit from them. Tell me what the last thing. I'm not talking about your parents, for the parents that did the right thing. But I'm saying, seriously speaking, what circles of elderly black people are you really trying to get respect from? Because if you don't get respect from them, or they don't recognize you as someone to be respected, that suddenly you'll be cut off from networks and resources and shit. Like, that shit don't exist. Fucking black boomers and even the Gen X's are a fucking joke. And quiet as it's kept, us millennials pretty soon, we're gonna be a fucking joke. And to some of the generation alpha, I'm pretty sure they're gonna end up looking at us like that. And even some of the zillennials, right? Because if you're a late millennial, you should be old enough to be the parent of a zillennial. So, um, that whole not controlling shit, not being able to feed your own people, that's not some cool shit. And it creates problems later on when people realize that you don't wield any power, you don't control any of the opportunities, you have nothing to offer. They're like, why the fuck should I listen to you? You ain't got shit going on. I can't get what I need from you. I gotta go over here and beg this white man for everything I fucking need, right? I gotta go over here and beg this Jewish man for everything I fucking need. He's the one keeping a roof over my head. He's the one keeping food in my belly. He's the one, giving me this opportunity to make some money. You see, like it's just it's fucked up. So black men got to be more vigilant and organized on that shit and get off this whole, I've been eating bean pies and looking out my third eye and money is not important and it's the root of evil and Hotep and all that other magical bullshit. Get off the fucking magic. I don't give a fuck what FD Signifier says in his goofy ass commentary. I don't give a fuck what he says. At the end of the day, you got to be in that position. And with him, it's just hypocritical because I'm like, nigga, now you make like $300,000 off of YouTube. Shut up. Shut up. So anyway, what else? What else is there? I guess that's it. I guess that's all my stream of consciousness on this front. I know I started off with the Israel conversation, but it just rolled in. I've been having these thoughts on my mind lately because, I just haven't been commenting. I just haven't been putting out videos like that. Like I said, when it comes to the gender wars topic, which was primarily, a lot of what I talked about. That whole 61% of women having kids and black women having kids and only 46% of black men being fathers, or 61% of the women being mothers and 46% of the men being fathers. That conversation is done with me. I'm like, ain't that's it for me. And I sit there and I see the matriarchal bullshit and everything else, but I'm still highly pissed off about these narratives about black men's sexual irresponsibility, and the majority of us don't even have kids. And it goes back to what we've been saying about a minor a large cohort of women sleeping with a minority of men. So anyway, that's pretty much all I gotta say about the world right now. But that's my video. SWP out. Don't forget to comment, share, like, and subscribe.